But now, press now. That's how. Right?
What is your name? What is your name?
What's your name? Say it! Toby! Who are you? Say your name.
Yeah, I'm one of the people. Welcome to the hill where we have the proper perspective to press on, press harder, press now. Right? Before we start this very first episode on this brand new channel, Press Now, I'd like to take the opportunity to say thank you to everybody who has followed me from when I started to press on into when I decided to press harder, and now to press now. I do truly, genuinely, and sincerely appreciate all of your support. And this channel is going to be about conversations, right? As many of you might have noticed, the other channel, Press Harder, is a different direction, right? And whenever I whip out my presser and point it at some gang activity, I leave it up to the government to decide if they want to do it the easy way or the hard way. And I don't know which way is the easy way and which way is the hard way, but some would rather that I press harder and shove my presser down their throat, and some would like to have a conversation and maybe bridge the gap through communication, you know. And in this video, I was in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, which coincidentally is where the last two episodes on the Press Harder channel took place. And in this time, it was a sergeant, and I did everything just like I always do, and you know, it was no different, but he was willing to have a conversation, and it was a long conversation. I talked to him for about an hour, and you know, conversations, they go round and round sometimes and take lots of different directions, but I do want to stay focused. So I pulled a few choice clips from the conversation, and I'll be joining them together, right? And we'll be talking about some topics that'll be recurring on this channel. Many of you are already familiar with them, but many of you aren't, right? And the first topic is, you know, who the people are, right? And who the citizens are and who the persons are, and who has the rights and who has the privileges around here, right? And what that entails, you know. And we'll be talking about identities, and of course we'll be talking about how the government plays games, word games, with semantics, and creates illusions as to where you think that a word means one thing, but in the law it means something completely different that you never would have thought, right? And you know, people is one of those such words, right? Oftentimes in everyday conversation, we think that people refers to everybody, and that people and person and citizen are actually just synonyms that mean the same thing, and that they're interchangeable. But the Constitution of the United States, which happens to be the supreme law of the land, had other ideas, you know, or I should say the framers had other ideas when they wrote the Constitution of the United States, right? And the people are the ones with the rights, and I'm one of the people. And rights, they don't keep you warm at night, they don't feed you, and they don't put a roof over your head. And one of those rights is the right to religion. And my religion, what I believe, is that people shall not be named. Now, usually, this doesn't create a problem in everyday life, right? But the government, they don't like it at all. One of the first things the government wants to know is, what's your name? Right? And, you know, recently I was kidnapped for First Amendment protected activity, just existing in public with a camera. And the government immediately wanted to know my name. But I don't believe in a name. I don't believe I have one. And that's my right. And I'm not going to give up that right. You know, no matter how much they whip me, metaphorically or in reality, right? And they tried. They didn't hang me by my wrists and actually whip me, but they did deprive me of food for 34 days, and they did drag me around by my hair and by my beard, and, you know, try and rip my arms out of their sockets, and you know, throw me in solitary confinement without toilet paper or a blanket or communication with the outside world, where they control the lighting, and, you know, where they would come in and gaslight me and yell at me and hold my eyelids open, poke me, prod me. But they couldn't make me say something that I didn't believe. They couldn't make me walk. They couldn't make me talk. And they couldn't make me care. Right? And if you're not willing to take all the whippings, then don't bother taking any of the whippings. Right? Just, you know, if you want privileges, then give up your rights. If you want rights, then you have to be prepared to give up the privileges. That's called live free or die. There's only two options, right? You can't trade your rights for money without trading your rights for money. So, without further ado, we'll take it into this video and see where it leads. Yeah. Hope to see you at the end. Right?
What is your name, if you don't mind? You don't
Well,
have to tell
it's
me.
not nice to call people names. Have you ever heard that?
What is your given name?
Are you listening? Okay, it's not nice to call people names. Have you ever heard that?
Derogatory names, correct. But you're given,
Any name is
you're
a
given
name.
You're given in your surname. You don't have to tell me. Just tell me you don't want to tell me. I don't care.
It's just against my religion. People don't have names, right? You're not one of the people, which is why you have names. You're a servant of the people, and you don't have the right to religion. You don't get to say you don't believe in names because you wanted money instead, right? You wanted a paycheck. You wanted the privileges that come with the job, right? The uniform, the car, the badge, the status, any number of privileges, but privileges aren't rights.
No, they're not.
Right, and you can't have both.
Well,
right, and
you have the absolute right not to tell me what name you were given at birth, and that's fine.
well, the concept of being given anything, right, is against my religion, right?
Okay.
You can offer, but you can't actually give.
Okay.
You can only give to yourself, right? Like you can offer something, but you can't make somebody accept it, right? And if they do accept it, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
If they don't accept it, it's not your fault.
Well, I respect whatever everybody has the right, whatever religious practice they choose, and I'm not going to infringe on that.
You're not going to infringe on that.
I'm not going to impose my beliefs on anybody else.
Yeah, Sergeant Snyder.
So Sergeant Snyder says that he's not going to infringe on that. The truth is that he can't infringe on that. Only I can. He cannot make me say something that I don't want to say. All he can do is threaten me and try and take away privileges, right? But the truth is that whether he wants to take away my privileges or not, it doesn't change the fact that no matter how many officers I meet or servants of the people I meet that are willing to have a conversation, it only takes one to step on the Constitution and forget about his oath, and that's the day and age that we're in of propaganda and ignorance of the law. But let's continue.
Citizens like yourself don't have to be peaceable. Okay, so that's a clue that you're not one of the people, right? You only have to be reasonable. And you're allowed to breach the peace if you have justifiable reasons, such as protecting your own life or somebody else's life, right? But the people don't get to breach the peace. Okay? And that's why the people have rights, right? Because that's a righteous concept of being peaceable.
I do have, it's like having the right to violate traffic laws, as long as I have my emergency.
You have a privilege to violate traffic laws.
Well,
it's not a right. You don't have any rights. You have a privilege that was given to you by the legislature.
Let me rephrase what I said. The law gives me the ability.
The law. But rights don't come from the law.
I'm rephrasing my words.
Okay, yes, it's a privilege.
The law gives me the ability with the use of emergency equipment to violate traffic laws or take people's freedoms. Yes.
To take citizens, persons.
To detain them.
Yes.
But I have to have reason for it, yes.
It doesn't ever say that you can take people's rights. The rights of the people shall not be deprived, shall not be infringed, shall not be abridged, and shall not be denied.
Yes, you are correct. Rights are different from laws.
You can't come and take my speech, okay? It's not possible. And you can't take my beliefs, right? So the concept of depriving a right is just absurd, even though it's said on an everyday basis.
Well, again,
usually when somebody's talking about having their rights deprived, really they mean their privileges were deprived, right?
So I don't know if you can tell, but it almost looks like this servant of the people is comprehending what I'm saying, right? And that's should be astonishing, because there are literally graduates of Yale University, graduates of law, that cannot understand this simple concept of not being in two places at the same time, not being two things at the same time, that you can't be a servant of the people and one of the people at the same time. that privileges come at a cost of your rights, and rights come at a cost of your privileges. That life is a series of trade-offs, and while neither one is right or wrong, it is important to know which path you're on, what your position is. If you're one of the people, then you're on the high ground, and you need to keep the high ground. If you get off the high ground, you don't have the high ground anymore. If you want privileges, you're on the low ground. And if you want to get righteous, if you want to get all moral, well, you're going to lose your privileges, and you're going to have to start all over again. And you probably don't want to do that, because if you have privileges, you probably like them, and you don't want to lose them. And every time you lose them, it gets harder to get them back again.
I apologize about one thing. I was sitting here listening to you talk, thinking initially about the semantics between privilege and right, and as I think about it, and as I thought about it while you've been speaking, words matter for the context of meaning, and you were correct.
Words matter.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
as far as the context of meaning what you're saying.
Right. In everyday speak, they're interchangeable almost.
Right.
But constitutionally
For what
speaking,
you're specifically talking about, you were absolutely correct. I do
Correct.
not have the right to do anything. I've been vested by the law to be able to do these things.
right, and that can be taken from you. Like even your gun, your lieutenant can demand your gun,
Yes.
right?
They can take my gun, they can take my badge, and strip me of my arrest powers. Yes, they can.
Right, and like the Fourth Amendment, supposed right. Well, the right is to the people there to be secure, but it's often said that there's a right against unreasonable search and seizures, right? But really, that's a privilege, okay? Because what's unreasonable varies from jury to jury. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's a privilege of who can articulate themselves the best, right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
But you don't have that. You understand, right? Your lieutenant can search this car anytime.
Yes.
Right, and can demand that you allow him to search you or lose your job.
Yes.
Right?
That's one of those. That's one of those privileges that I have given up.
Yeah.
Being able to deny
Yeah.
that search simply by being employed.
Simply
the
by
city
being
of Mount
employed.
Juliet.
Yeah, but not just you. I mean, yes, you're an officer, and yes, you took an oath, and that's a big deal. Okay, but anybody that has a job, okay, agreed that their employer can tell them what to do.
Yes.
Right? And if you work at 7-Eleven and your boss says, I want to search your pockets right now, and you say no, well, you can't get arrested, but you can get fired,
Yes.
right? But it's not the government that's telling you what to do.
Correct.
It's 7-Eleven.
Yes.
But in your case, it's the government.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're talking constitutionally, the Constitution only protects the rights from the government infringing them, not from 7-Eleven.
Right.
Right? So anybody working for the government has agreed to give up their rights as established in the Constitution. They now have privileges that sometimes look a lot like rights. Right? Sometimes,
Like you said, I think it's the interchangeableness of words.
yeah.
But when you get down to legal speak, that's where you have to stop playing semantics, and that's where the words actually matter.
That's where the words actually matter. And the same thing in codes, right? Have you ever noticed that it seems like every code has a different definition for a word? Like there's a law that says that fish are considered spiders well, it's not a law. It was like there's this case that the insurance companies defined bugs and they included fish as bugs, right? And they could do that under their insurance policy.
Okay.
Right? And so then when, some like tornado comes through and has flying fish, have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
And then they, end up your house is full of fish, right? And somebody tried to make a claim. right?
bugs.
The insurance company denied it, right? And the guy was like, well, they're bugs, and I have insurance against bugs, and they're called bugs in this insurance claim, right? They're considered bugs when I agreed to this, you know, and now they're trying to say that they're not bugs. And everybody's like, they're not bugs. Who would say that fish are bugs? But they did say fish are bugs, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing about words, you know, they only have meaning if they've been defined.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and they can be defined many different ways in many different places. And it's difficult to get that concept across, Sergeant, but I appreciate you thinking about it.
Well,
And considering
I
it.
did. Like I said, I listened to you, and
Yeah.
I thought about what you had said
Yeah.
about the difference, and as you were talking, I was thinking about that while I was listening. And I was like, you know, he's absolutely correct. It does matter. So you have to be. It's like for me, almost every day, everything I say matters. You know, it matters how I say it. It matters what I say. You know, the only time that I'm free to have the right of expression is when I get off and go home.
Well, even then you don't. I mean, whatever you say off work can still come back to get you fired.
Well, like if I'm at my house and I talk to my wife, I don't have to be as careful.
You don't have to be as careful because you're not worried your wife is going to tell on you.
Right.
But still, being married is a privilege,
Oh, yeah.
right? And she can divorce you,
Yeah.
right? So it's not just your job that's keeping you in line. There's a lot of privileges,
Oh, there's a lot of things that keep me in line, yes.
right? But they're all privileges.
They are.
Right.
Most everybody's life is, I mean, life in general is a privilege every day that you get to wake up. It's not a...
Oh, life, liberty, and property are privileges under the Fifth Amendment.
It's,
So that was a good talk with Sergeant Snyder, but I brought up that case. I said about fish and spiders, but I got a couple of cases confused. But luckily, I went back and I found what I was thinking of, and so I'm going to show you some clips from Steve Leto, and then I'm going to connect it all to an issue that's affecting this country right now in a serious way. So try and follow along. Yeah, right?
Welcome once again to Leto's Law. Here's Steve Leto.
Had a whole bunch of people send me a story out of California, and this is the goofy kind of thing that sometimes you hear from courts interpreting laws. And this might sound like a stretch, but it's not that far out of line. It might still be odd, but we'll get there. California court rules that bees are fish.
So yesterday, under questioning from Senator Blackburn, you told her that you couldn't define what a woman is, that you were not a biologist, which I think you're the only Supreme Court nominee in history who's been unable to answer the question, what is a woman?
So what we're talking about here is not how biologists would describe this, or ichthyologists, you know. What we're talking about here is how it's described in the law, lawmakers. The CESA's, that's the law, Fish and Game Code, which establishes the basis on which plants and animals are protected, defines fish differently than you or I might define fish. A fish includes the following: a wild fish, a mollusk, a crustacean, an invertebrate, an amphibian, or part, spawn, or ovum of any of those animals. So the question is, a mollusk. Nobody would have thought a mollusk was a fish either, but that was the classification. They had all these things. They say these things are all fish under this statute.
Let me ask, under the modern leftist sensibilities, if I decide right now that I'm a woman, then apparently I'm a woman.
Of course, many people are going to joke and say, yeah, the bumblebees woke up one morning and discovered they were fish. So I also told you a while back about the case where the court said that spiders are insects. under the insurance code. So nothing surprises me anymore.
So, what happens if a mollusk is teaching a class full of bees and the mollusk tells the baby bees, the kindergarten age bees, that they can be fish if they want? And more importantly, what happens if a mollusk decides to be a fish? Can it compete against bees in college level sports, or is that an unfair advantage? Leave your comments in the comment section. The comment section. The comments.
Present intellectual arguments
Intellectual arguments.
to which I do not have the specific answer. Okay?
Uh-huh.
I got a big ass presser. Ugh!
Obey your master. Master.
三民主义好，三民主义好，一切大小官员都是公仆，一切贪官污吏统统打倒，统统打倒，打倒不成。